forward our next presenters. They've come all the way from Brazil, and as I read the introduction, they actually they have some of the most beautiful land in the world, and some of the most beautiful people in the world. But they were trying to figure out some of the magic from the U.S. and other parts of the world. How can we engage the people into the land, into the beautiful parks and such that we have? They're here to learn, but they're here to share. And remember, we talked about, what is it? Children, children, nature, network. Let's all network with our guests during and after the final presentation. So I'd like to call forward J.P. Amaral from the Instituto Alana in Sao Paulo, and Claudia Vidigal from the Bernard Van Leer Foundation. No, you can't come up yet. Okay, from the Bernard Van Leer Foundation in Brazil. Now, they get the prize. They cross continents to be here. So they rode here backwards. They rode here backwards. Let us show them some international love and welcome. Please come forward.
Thank you very much for that warm-up for my presentation. That will help a lot. Well, Claudia is just here with me, but then we decided to just have a single presentation here. I'll be trying to do my best to represent here our amazing partner. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the partnership. I'd also like to thank here the team that is doing the interpretation for us. As for Alana, it's a big issue in the inclusion and accessibility of events. So it's quite important for us to be having that as well. And because of that, I'll do also my self-description, as is a common thing that we do in all our events and activities. So I'm a white man with short black hair and beard, with this kind of like Children in Nature shirt with a white shirt with some leaves and jeans. So welcome to Brazil, everyone. I'll be speaking a little bit of our experience on how have we built the natural play spaces in Brazil. So what is the advocacy work we do behind these natural landscapes for outdoor play? As I mentioned, my name is JP. I'm the Children in Nature Program Coordinator at Alana Institute, that I will talk a little bit about it in a second. But first, to give a little bit of context, I think the best thing we could do is to share the most up-to-date data that we have in Brazil in regards to children in nature. And that's a survey, it's a research that we did last year on looking also to the negative impacts of the pandemic on children and the connection that, or the lack of connection they had with nature, but we also wanted to look on the other way around. So what about the children that did have connection with nature, and how did that help them cope better during pandemic? And how is that, more importantly, how is that a good and relevant opportunity for us to thrive after this is done, after COVID, and now that they're being able to go outside and to go to school? How can we use that opportunity to value more the natural play spaces, and how we've been using that in Brazil? So first of all, we all know the children lockdown happened not only during COVID, it already happened before. And in Brazil, it's quite drastic. I was shocked when we went to the visit on Monday in the elementary public school, and the colleague there was like saying, well, children are gonna have once a week, 1 hour of participation or a classroom here in these areas that are outdoors, from the Trust for Public Land. I don't know who was there, who remembered that. Like 1 hour a week, and everybody saying, I know that's not so much. Actually, that's what children overall in Brazil have per week. Half of the children in Brazil have as to contact with nature at all. Not even in schools, but at home, in their whole life, right? So 50% used to play outdoors up to once a week. And that lowered down to 34% during COVID. So we got already that impact, and that was quite drastic when we saw that. We could see, and the worst thing is that the policies around this was not to support this, it's actually to repress this. So instead of opening the parks and the squares, we could actually see quotes like this mother that we interviewed saying, the parks were all closed with those black and yellow ribbons around them. It was sad to see that. And so that was the reality we had. On the other hand, we saw how nature is really essential for children during COVID, and especially during COVID for their health and well-being. So 81% of these families that we interviewed perceived that contact with nature allowed children to get through the pandemic with better health and well-being. So it helped them cope with pandemic. So this mother says, contact with nature made the pandemic more bearable, less tough. So of course, what we see as a response is how children are connecting with nature or perhaps reconnecting with nature. So 75% of the families intend to take their children more often to public spaces such as squares and parks. And this is a really sad quote, but it gives a little bit of hope for us. So my daughter never went to the zoo, she never went to the theater, to the circus, she stays really isolated. I even told my husband, after the pandemic, I want to take her everywhere so she can enjoy what she missed. She was very lonely with me. I think she didn't have a really happy childhood. So this sensation, this really sad sensation of what we have lost and perhaps not enjoyed our best, people are trying to see this as a way of what can we do next, right? How can we do differently? So that's what we saw when we look at how they're valuing the life in harmony with nature. So 64% of the families value nature conservation after the pandemic more. And 59% think more often about the importance of having green areas in the city and the necessity of the city halls and the governments to work towards that. So in the end, what we work for is for more children in nature and more nature for children. Our mission is to defend the right of every child to live in a healthy environment, and with that, strengthening its bond with nature. Within this program, we are within this NGO called Alana, or the system as we mention it, which is the social environmental impact organization which promotes the rights and integral development of children. Our fields of work within Children and Nature program, of course inspired in this amazing network, is on 5 pillars. And here is a little bit of our dreams. So for education, we believe in greener, more challenging school spaces connected with their territories. We believe that nature is essential for children as well as children for nature. We believe that nature is a fundamental element for children's health and well-being, as this research just showed. We believe that climate and social environment justice should be given to all children. Last, that cities should be greener, more accessible, and child-friendly. And one of the ways we are doing for that is through these natural play spaces. It comes in hand as a solution for schools, for urban parks, and other community centers that we already see a lot of the experiences that was brought today as it is. So we see natural play spaces as these outdoor areas that is mainly based from natural elements, full of possibilities for interaction, exploration, and that will blow children's minds on creativity. So natural play spaces, they foster their free play, shared experiences, the bond with public spaces and with nature, as well as the pleasure of being outside. They also contribute to the regeneration of the ecosystem, right? So talking about, we do believe that natural play spaces should be at the center of discussions, and green areas should be at the center of discussions like the climate negotiations as a nature-based solutions with multiple benefits, as I will explain later on. So a little bit of the characteristics and the key drivers of how we see the Brazilian versions of natural play spaces. First of all, it needs to capture a sense of place. So it's really important that when we look at these natural play spaces, we worship and we actually value the landscape as it is. You know, if there are rocks there, just leave them there. If it's a desert, it's a desert. If it's not so, if it's a little bit steep, let's work with that. So we incorporate these elements that bring the uniqueness of each territory. And that is so important because children will learn about their territory. It's also about the cultural learning and the environmental, and the habitat that they are at. Well, second of all, we learned a lot in these days, especially with Wawa and also with experience in elementary school, the listening to children's voices and gestures and to the community, right? And you can do that in so many ways, and we have so much to contribute on that, but unfortunately we don't have the time. But just the message I would say, it's not only about how they speak. We even talked about that. How can you talk to children in a neurodiversity environment and bring all these perspectives? So it's not only about listening, but it's about how they play, how they move, just observing them. And we have a big project within Alana that just does observation of children and seeing how that already speaks for itself of how children are reacting, interacting with the environment and what they want. Especially in Brazil, has a really rich play culture and tradition, especially in environments of scarcity, where you don't have a Disneyland or many resources to consume and to buy, but we do have our creativity and the richness of different play cultures. So we really like to incorporate these childhood-related cultural elements in regards to the territory and the natural resources that are there available. So our concept of natural play spaces is also inspired by this and encompasses features of natural play that has been very popular among the Brazilian children. And as I mentioned, also to promote natural play spaces as nature-based solutions, looking how you can use these materials that are organic, that are also much cheaper to use, but also it tackles challenges related to climate change and to nature deficit disorder, of course, among children, but also talking about promoting the ecosystem regeneration and climate stability. And now to talk a little bit, I really want to show a video, so I'll go a little bit quick on this, when the video is much more interesting than my voice, but the strategies to scale up natural play spaces and advocacy work. This is no innovation for all of us, but it's important to see how important all these elements are, and also our partner, how Urban 95 network within the Bernard Van Leer Foundation, they really do an amazing job as engaging the city halls and leaders and training leaders especially. So that's one of the biggest things that we do. Biannual study trips that we take into Germany or to other places around the world, but also in Brazil, so they can experience this. And the importance of this is that normally it's those leaders that are not so engaged, not so passionate, because we also saw that on the elementary school, how important it is to have a principal that just goes there, I want this. But once you don't have that, how can you do it? You have to engage it. You have to make them passionate about it, just like we were passionate about nature when we were kids. So you have to take them to the study trips and make them have this immersion and bring them together with you. And with that, they start bringing their experience. So we had that, for example, with the former mayor of Boa Vista in the north of Brazil, in the middle of the Amazon. She went to the study trip, went back, and with the support from the Bernard Van Leer Foundation and the Urban 95 network, she started just promoting parks everywhere in the city, and also paths for children to go to school on interactive ways, in a playful way. Also publications. I didn't mention, but we have a booklet here about this research that I mentioned, but we are also launching now in June a book called The Natural Play Spaces, How to Create and Care for Playful Landscapes, with all the paths and the guides to how to do these natural play spaces. And also the technical support and skill sharing with the cities. This is a really amazing picture. I do have the before and after, but I was skeptical if it would be a good way to see it, but I'd rather show the results. This was before a wasteland in Fortaleza in the northeast of Brazil. Next to a river, you could just see trash all over there. And together with the community, it's in the periphery of the city of Fortaleza, we started supporting them on how to do this. We started with 2 pilot projects. After we did that, they already mapped 40 areas around the city to do it. And most especially, which is the next point, capacity building. It's amazing to come here and see all of you guys, or many of you guys, working professionally with this, building outdoor spaces and having this view of the Children and Nature Network. But you don't see that much in Brazil. So we have to capacity build this urban planners and architects so they can have this, and also the playground industry, so they can have this view of how to do natural play spaces. So that was the case also in Fortaleza, where we started this pilot projects, and now there is a business that opened after we went there that is doing natural play spaces for the city hall. So it's amazing that we just can leave now and the seed is planted, right? And last but not least, most important, gaining scale, we have to work with partners that have the outreach, right? And that's Urban 95 Network. It's a network within the Bernard Van Leer Foundation that basically works with children and looking at cities upon the view of children up to 95 centimeters, think 3 inches, I guess. So a 3-year-old child. And what do? They work with 24 cities in Brazil with the objective of creating programs and policies aimed at early childhood. And we are the partners, technical partners working on access to nature. And we have partnered with them to talk about the design, implementation, and manage natural play spaces, starting with 7 cities already, but we do look forward to spread to all these cities and even broader. So for now, I'll bring the video so we can have an immersion in these projects that I just mentioned. Bear with me because it's really good. Yeah. I hear it. Supposed to be images already. And a little bit of Brazilian Spanish music, so I like it.
A gente está em parque naturalizado aqui em São Paulo. É um lugar que tem mais natureza, não é um lugar muito industrial, vamos dizer.
Os parques naturalizados são paisagens para o brincar. As crianças e toda a população, né, também vão tendo cada vez menos acesso à natureza dentro das cidades. Então, os parques naturalizados são espaços que vêm responder a esse contexto atual.
Os parques naturalizados são centros de criatividade, então, ao invés de brinquedos estáticos dos parquinhos convencionais, eles permitem que haja brinquedos com múltiplas interações, com interações completamente diferentes, e são feitos com materiais orgânicos, com poda de árvores, galhos, bambu, triturado, serragem.
Cada brinquedo desses tem
esse desafio, né?
o desafio da própria organicidade.
Parece simples, mas né, no mundo de hoje em dia não rola mais direito, né? Você incentivar a molecada a brincar com a terra, a cavar.
Eu tentei fazer uma casinha que é meio baixa. Eu fiz um bonequinho que eu pus dentro da casinha. E eu acho que eu vou sempre vir nesse parque, porque eu tô achando bem legal a construção.
Então é incrível, né? Ver com tão poucos elementos, madeira, bambu, corda, as crianças vão longe, né?
Estamos aqui no Monte Bom Jesus, local símbolo do nosso território. É uma formação geológica situada no centro de Caruaru. Aí daqui é possível enxergar toda a zona urbana.
Aqui antes era muito perigoso, muitos assaltos. Não podia sair para brincar. Nossa mãe não deixava.
Nos últimos anos, a Prefeitura Municipal de Caruaru tem trabalhado muito para humanizar e pacificar esse espaço. E uma intervenção chave é justamente trazer uma unidade escolar para cá.
A criança ela pode aprender demais com a natureza, com os elementos, com a terra, com a água, com o barro e interagir entre elas. É o desemparedar, é tirar da sala de aula física entre 4 paredes e usufruir do que é melhor da natureza.
O processo de implantação do parque, ele é um processo lúdico. E olhar para as crianças nessa implantação é uma das tarefas mais importantes, porque enquanto a gente implanta, elas ocupam, e ao ocupar, elas mostram novas possibilidades o tempo todo.
Agora enfia lá no fundo. Agora cobre.
Há um envolvimento da população, principalmente das crianças, na execução desse espaço, e isso acredito que reforça muito o sentimento de pertencimento e de cuidado.
Muito legal. gente não tem mais medo de sair. Agora pode ficar se preocupado. Agora nossa vida é brincar aqui brincando. Aí agora tem jardim que a gente mesmo construiu. E é bom a gente cuidar, né? Porque esse daqui quem fez foi dizer a gente.
A primeira cidade que projetou e implantou o parque foi Fortaleza, que implantou direto 2 parques.
A gente tem vários terrenos públicos que não tinham uso ou que eram terrenos abandonados aqui, que eram da prefeitura. E a gente viu isso como uma oportunidade de criar espaços, respiros verdes, né, que a população tivesse acesso diariamente.
Há 2 anos atrás, aproximadamente, na realidade, aqui era um terreno baldio que trazia insegurança. O parque resgatou esse sentido de enamoramento com a cidade, com o nosso lugar, com as nossas raízes.
O Microparque Seu Zequinha foi uma forma de a prefeitura andar com as próprias pernas. Então foi a primeira intervenção que a gente finalizou sozinho. E esse já foi o primeiro desafio que a gente enfrentou, que foi pegar esse aprendizado aqui e multiplicar na cidade num outro local.
A implantação é a mais barata possível, porque a gente está aproveitando a natureza, a gente está aproveitando a topografia, a gente está aproveitando, inclusive, as plantas nativas.
Tudo que um parque naturalizado precisa, uma prefeitura tem. Essas pessoas que se envolvem, que participam, elas podem depois multiplicar para depois esse projeto se ancorar nas prefeituras. E tem um benefício para a própria cidade, né? Já que são áreas naturais, mais naturalizadas, então tem solo mais permeável, né? A preocupação com plantio traz um conforto térmico também para as cidades, trazendo microclimas.
É muito emocionante ver a criança brincando na natureza, porque ela fica muito criativa, ela inventa as brincadeiras, tudo vira alguma coisa. Os meus filhos passaram a ver um tronco no chão e dizem, mamãe, um brinquedo.
É uma adrenalina que, tipo, alcançar ali, tipo, tem que ter força pra levantar assim. Eu sinto no parque é liberdade.
Foi uma evolução para eles, né? De interagir e voltar ao tempo de novo. A brincar, a correr, que não tinha espaço para correr. Eu fico muito orgulhosa, né? Isso ali eu já vivi aquilo ali, né? Já brinquei, né? E hoje meus filhos brincam.
A gente tem que tentar fazer a nova geração olhar para a natureza de uma forma mais amorosa, mais especial, para ter um futuro melhor, né? Em relação à natureza, ao meio ambiente.
A gente plantou essas plantinhas. Bem dizer, foi a gente. E enquanto eu estiver aqui, eu vou cuidar desse ambiente.
Thank you. And if there's a back to the presentation for invitation, because next year you can be able to see that for yourself in Brazil, as we're holding the International School Grounds Alliance Conference in September. So you're all invited to Brazil to come to us and see. And here's our website also with some of the materials and the content that we just showed here. So thank you very much.